Welcome to the Divorce Awakening podcast,
where you wake the fuck up after divorce.
and you realise that your best life ever is ahead of you.
I'm Delia Munn,
And I'm Sam Brindle.
and we're two happily divorced coaches here to show you that life doesn't end after divorce.
Mate, it's just getting started.
This is your chance to find out who you really are and build a life that you can't even imagine.
We'll be talking about purpose, career change, dating, spiritual shit, and falling in love with yourself.
Let's get into it.
Let's go!
Hello, and welcome back to the Divorce Awakening podcast. So today we are going to talk about a subject that can be quite difficult for people to go through, and that is when your ex-partner meets somebody new. So Delia, I know that you have experienced this, that your ex now is living with his new partner. So perhaps you could give some guidance or advice on how you might support other women who are going through a similar situation.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a big topic. And I should say that this is especially relevant for when you have kids with that ex-partner, right? Because, you know, if you're listening to this and you're divorced and you haven't got kids, to be honest, you can probably skip this episode because you get to do that wonderful thing where you say, okay, they've got a new partner, and then, you know, deal with that emotionally yourself. Of course, I'm not saying it's not hard if there's sadness there or anger there or resentment there, but essentially you don't have to deal with that in your reality every day, right? You don't ever have to necessarily meet that person, hopefully. So this is especially relevant when you have kids with that person, because of course, the moment that your ex-partner meets somebody new and that person becomes serious, or that person starts living with your ex-partner, all of which are completely out of your control, what that means is your kid is getting a stepmom or a new woman in their lives, like whatever label we want to give her. Suddenly your kid has got someone new in their life who you don't know. And I think this is one of the hardest things, is like, if you think about like as a role as a parent, like one of our biggest roles is just, you know, keeping them safe, right? Knowing, you know, we know who their friends are. We know who their friends' parents are. We generally don't let them just get in a car with someone we don't know. And yet suddenly someone who you've never met before, at least initially, is having a hugely significant role, perhaps 50% of the time, whatever percent of the time is that they spend with their father or your ex-partner, is suddenly in their life. And so I think that is actually one of the hardest things, is accepting that someone you don't know, someone you haven't picked, like think of like all the vetting process you would do for someone who's going to be the babysitter for your kid or a carer for your kid. Like you're not involved in that process at all. Suddenly plays a very significant role in your child's life. And I think I just want to acknowledge that, because that is hard, right? No matter how wonderful this person is, that initial moment when you don't know who they are, it is scary, because you don't know who they are. And you know, there's that feeling of like, this person's going to be so big in my baby's life, right? Even if your baby's grown up, they're always our babies, right? And so I just want to acknowledge that it is a big thing. It can feel scary. It can feel hard. You didn't choose it. You can feel very out of control. And I think the first step is really acknowledging those feelings and letting them come out, like letting yourself feel sad that suddenly someone who's not you gets to be having as much time with your kids as you know, if you've got a 50-50 parenting arrangement, and letting those feelings come out, but also acknowledging that they are not, you don't know who that person is yet. And that kind of takes me on to step 2. So step 1 is just, I think, acknowledging how hard it is and acknowledging the fears that are coming up for you and being okay with that. And then step 2 is like acceptance, I think. And we talked about acceptance in last week's episode, but it is accepting that this person is now on the scene. And then it's like, how can you have the best possible relationship with this person so that your kid has the best possible outcome, right? It always comes back to the kid, right? So, for me, when I found out that my ex had a new partner who was going to be living with him, my priority quickly became, okay, I want to get to know this person. And I want to get to know this person really with an open mindset. You not be attached to any thoughts or judgments before I go in, and get to know this person with an open heart. And the better relationship that you can have with that person, the better it's going to be, the easier it's going to be for you, and the better it's going to be for your kid, right? And the chances are this person's a decent human being. I mean, most of us are. I love people, and I feel like we are more good than bad, right? You can watch the news.
Yeah.
And you can watch all these like horror series on Netflix, and you can think, oh God, my ex-partner is going to meet someone psychotic. But the chances are they're not. The chances are they're going to meet someone who's a decent human being, who's actually going to help and aid them where they are on their journey in life. And this person has the potential to become a great person in the life of your child. This person has the potential to be giving them more love, giving them more support, being an extra source of wisdom and insight. And so what if we went into this situation looking at it like that, instead of thinking it's going to be awful, right? Like looking at how great could this be versus how awful is this going to be? I feel like I'm talking a lot. Does this?
No, this is amazing advice. It also, I suppose, comes down to perceptions as well, because you can see it in two different ways. You can see it through the lens of maybe some jealousy, maybe some, again, like we talked about last week, but like it's unfair that, they've met somebody new and they're going to be spending so much time with your kid. Or the same facts of the situation can be how great that they've met someone new. And how great that my daughter has an extra person to love them. And exactly what you said, that they have someone else to learn from. And I think more love, the better.
Yes, the more love, the better. And how could we have a more generous interpretation of what is happening right now? Because I think so often our brain goes into fight or flight.
Yeah. And it goes into the what ifs and it goes negative. But if we can consciously decide to see this through loving eyes, then everything just feels lighter.
So does. It so does. So like for my example, when my ex met somebody new, I arranged to have a coffee with them. And of course it was a bit nerve-wracking for all of us, right? It is. I don't want this to seem flippant. I don't want to be saying that like I didn't have these fears or these big emotions or these feelings. I did. And I think talk to good friends about them, acknowledge them, let them out. If you need to go and scream in the woods because you feel so angry and sad and frustrated that your child is suddenly having somebody new in their life and that's really hard for you, it's a really tough pill for you to swallow, let those emotions out. Please let those emotions out. I do not want to be like saying that like, this is all fine, just be the bigger person and accept love. Like, no, there is a really big stage before that where you struggle and you need to talk to friends and you acknowledge and everything. So I don't want to undermine that part of the journey. But then when you do meet this person, like we met for a coffee and I just tried to go in with a mentality of like, okay, eyes wide open, and this is an opportunity to get to know another human being. And when I left that coffee, I felt a sense of trust, and it was really cool actually, because I realized that I hadn't actually been looking to judge them in any way or come to a decision about who they are as a person. But I realized what I had been seeking in that coffee was, can I trust you with my child? And I walked away thinking, yes, I can. And that was so wonderful, because then I was like, that was all I was looking for actually. Can I trust you with my child? And I realized that like trust for each of us might come down to different things and different layers and values and all of those things. But this wasn't a deeply thought about logical process. It was more of an intuitive, can I trust you? It's just a very intuitive, like, that I walked away with, but the answer was yes. And I decided that that was enough, because I think the other thing is we have to focus on what we can control. And when we are divorced, if you're living in a situation where you have shared custody, like Sam and I do, where we have 50-50 custody, you have to accept that you cannot control what happens in the 50% of time your child is not with you. Like, you cannot.
Yes.
So then you have two choices. Do you trust that your child is going to be okay and do everything in your power to make sure they're okay when they're with you? Or do you beat yourself up and spiral and agonize over all the reasons why they might not be okay while they're with you? You know, and which is going to be the happier life?
This is also such an important point. I hadn't really thought about it through the lens of trust. And yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time with the beating myself up. Are they okay? What are they doing? Then they must be missing me, all of those things. And actually, I can't control any of it. So I just have to trust. And I do trust. 100%, like my kid's dad. And then, and then bringing someone new, it's finding that trust with that person.
And I think I don't want to over or under acknowledge the fact that if you have genuine concerns about something that's going on in your child's life when they're not with you, I don't want to diminish that. I don't want to be like, just trust. I don't at all. Like, you know, if you're getting red flags, if you're getting serious signs that anything is not amiss, then you need to look into that, acknowledge that, what can be done. Even when we have 50% custody, we're never going to fully switch off, and we're always going to want to know that our kids are okay. So I'm not saying ignore any warning signs. I'm not saying anything like that. But if, you know, I'm really talking about a situation where you're not necessarily getting those warning signs and it's just in your head where the worrying is happening.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, if you have real concerns. I didn't have real concerns, but my mind was creating those concerns for me, which is kind of what it does, right? When it's in the new situations. And again, it's trusting and accepting that this is the situation and the kids are okay. Is there anything else you would add to anyone who is embarking on this new situation where their ex does have a new partner?
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add is that it's important that you don't ever speak badly about this person to your kids. And I feel like that's a given, right? But even if you are having concerns or doubts about who this person is, then talk initially to your friends, your therapist, or someone else, but try to give a unified approach to your kids. Because one thing that I've seen is really important, and to give an example, is I remember when our daughter had one of her first like little gym shows, like little dance show. My ex and his new partner came and I came, and we actually came at different times. And so we ended up sitting in different places. So I was sat on one side and they were sat on another side. And I could see that throughout like the performance, there were like moments where the kids stopped and they were running over to the parents. It was a very informal show. And I could see my daughter didn't know who to run to. And I was like, oh God, we should have sat together. And ever since that day, and it wasn't really intentional, but ever since that day, we have sat together and been this unified modern family in the eyes of my daughter. And it's not always easy, right? Like maybe I do want to, or maybe you do want to sit with your mates on the other side. But I think just trying to hold in mind that it's better for your kids if they can see you unified. And one thing that this is just like a silly little mantra that sometimes helps me, is like, I sometimes say to myself, like, I have a modern family. And that helps me really accept it, and it helps me lean into it. And I follow some people on Instagram that have very untraditional family setups. Like there's one, I think she's called like the Fruits of Linda, or Linda Fruits, something like that. And she basically got divorced. Then she came out as gay and she met a female partner. And they all live together in the house. So I think they have like 3 kids and they live together. So it's like the female couple and the ex-husband. And then, as if it can't get more brilliantly modern, the new female partner decided that she wanted to have a baby. And so they agreed that the husband could like donate his semen so that she could get pregnant. And it's just this like, and they all live together. And it's just like this brilliantly modern family. And when I follow people like that on Instagram, it inspires me to remember that not having a traditional family and having this kind of like more wonky modern family with different people now coming into my child's life can be a really, really beautiful thing if we choose to make it so.
That's wonderful. I love that story.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have been so brainwashed into the marriage and 2.4 children, and is the family structure, and that's how it must be. But there are other ways because a families can take lots of different shapes and forms. And, I think the way that I'm co-parenting, we are very close, my ex and I. We are good friends. We do hang out. We went on holiday together. It's not necessarily the traditional divorced family look. And I know, at some point there will be partners and they will be brought into this crazy little family unit that we've made.
Right? It's melting pot. But we get to decide what that melting pot feels like on the inside, right?
But I think one thing that is always important to me is that my kids always have stability. So whilst in our world, things can be changing, but for me, I don't want them to feel chaos. I want them to feel that, they are the priority. Their life continues, whether they have one house, whether they have two houses. But, our love for them, that doesn't change. The way that we are with them doesn't change, regardless of kind of who comes in to add to the family.
I love that, Sam. And I feel like that is such a good note to end on, because I think you've just hit the nail on the head. Like, the one thing that should anchor you through this difficult time of having a new partner come into your ex-partner's life and your child's life should be your child. Like, I think if you can put your emotions at the door, even if you don't, if you're listening to this and you're listening to Sam and you're like, okay, well, that's great for you that you have a great relationship with your ex, but I don't. I have this awful ex, or high conflict divorce, or he's a narcissist, or whatever it is you're listening to this and thinking is like you still have that choice to make your kid the anchor. And even if you're feeling jealousy, bitterness, anger at this new partner coming into your ex's life, I think focusing on your kid, using them as an anchor, thinking, how can I make this the best possible situation for my child, is going to not only make the situation better, it's actually going to give you peace. Like, that anchor will give you peace in a difficult time.
Oh, so good. Yeah. I love that. We always end on love and peace.
Always end on love and peace.
Wonderful. So we will love you and leave you. And as always, if this has brought up anything for you and you want to talk it through with someone, you can always send us a message through Instagram. We are always available to receive your messages. And good luck.
And we will see you in the next episode. See you there. Bye.